Hello, Loose and Groovy Baseball show enjoyers. Just a quick little note here before we get into today's episode. Something happened on my end of the recording, my webcam. The audio is still there, and so is Parker's, but I do not have the webcam from my end. So for this week's episode, instead of waiting for that to be fixed, I did want to get it up before the World Series starts tonight. So there will not be a webcam on this video. It's just going to be me and Parker's voices and not our beautiful faces. So hopefully that is fixed by next week. But just for this week, it'll be our audio. So sorry to all of our YouTube listeners. Spotify listeners, you won't see much of a difference. But yeah, I just want to let you guys know, and I hope you enjoy the episode. We are officially at the time of the Fall Classic, just a few days away from our time of recording this. It'll be the 25th. Today is the 23rd, and episode number 8 of the Loose and Groovy Baseball Show. Me and Parker, as always, hanging out, talking baseball. The last time we saw you guys, we weren't even at the championship series yet, and now we've decided our winners of both the NL and the AL, which is going to be the Yankees and the Dodgers, which we'll touch on a bit later. But to catch everybody else up, and ourselves too, we're going to dive a bit into the championship series themselves and kind of what went down in those, and kind of just general thoughts as we head into the World Series. Parker, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. It's getting extremely exciting on the baseball side of things with probably one of the best matchups we've had in a long time. Usually the one seed for each of the uh, conferences don't make it all the way, or the league. So it's going to be super fun to dive into each of these teams and kind of make our predictions based off rotation, bullpen, starting rotation, stuff like that.
Yes, so all very good points. The Yankees and Dodgers are probably obviously they're the two best teams still going because there are only two teams left, but they are both playing some excellent baseball right now. So it should be a very fun series to tune into. And watching some all-time great baseball players play in the same series is also going to be really fun, especially with a World Series.
Yeah.
So before we get into that, we're going to get started into this day in history, as always. I've got kind of a funky one today. This was last minute, as Parker knows, but it's not about like funky as in hard, but it's more just
Yeah.
interesting what this one is. So you don't need to overthink this one at all. I'm going to try and be a little more obvious too. So this was October 23rd, 1923.
Oh
The
boy.
other reason I picked this one is because we're at the Polo Grounds today, and Polo Grounds, I think, is one of the cooler stadiums in baseball history. So to me, what this sounds like, this is a all-time great, probably the greatest baseball player of all time, which I'm sure will give it away, but I don't really. It's more of the thing that actually happened. So this player, he played a charity game for the rival New York Giants in a postseason game at the Polo Grounds, and he hit a home run in this game over the Polo Grounds roof. So I'm
This was
sure you know who that is, but I just
You said
was
for the Giants.
Yeah, so he's doing a charity game for the Giants, and he hits a home run in the game to help them win.
Ooh.
And this is the rival team of the team you would normally think of when you think of him.
This was in 1923, though.
Yeah, don't overthink it, Parker. It's like this should be first name that comes to your mind.
Okay.
You don't need. I know you're checking it right now. You don't need to check it. You know who this
No, I
is.
actually, I genuinely don't have a name that came to mind because, um, when you said Giants before I heard the year, I was thinking you were gonna go to like the Willie Mays, but he was way
Well,
later than that. So,
but this isn't the team he played on. It's like a charity game, so it's just one game he played with this team.
oh,
But so yeah, it's a charity game. He literally just played on this team for one game, and because they're in New York, they're the rival of the team he usually played on, and the team that you know that he played for. Like when you think of this team, you think of this player, and vice versa. When you think of this player, you think of this team.
so you're saying like Babe Ruth? Like,
Yes, it's Babe Ruth.
okay.
I guess I made that way too hard, or I just confused
Yeah, I
you
don't
way too.
know. So explain exactly what happened again. So
So
Babe
I
Ruth.
don't know why. I don't know why this happened, but it's not. He is playing a charity game for the New York Giants. He is just playing a game with the team for fun. It sounds like.
Oh,
So
interesting.
think of it like a one-day contract or something. I don't know. I don't know the
Yeah.
whole backstory behind it, but it just said he played a game with the New York Giants, a postseason game at Polo Grounds, and he hit a home
Mhm.
run in that game. And that home run went over the entire wall of Polo Grounds, which I thought was pretty cool. So
Wow.
yeah, and then
That's
on the website, there's also a picture of him in a Giants uniform, which is kind of crazy to look at. But yeah, so just kind of an odd one today, but
yeah,
I thought
that's
that was
kind of
kind of cool.
weird.
I didn't know that was the thing.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, okay. So we're gonna skip over trivia this week. Parker, like you said, not a lot to do left in the postseason. We've kind of already done a lot of trivia surrounding that. So we're gonna jump right into our championship series recaps. Let's start in the AL. So we'll go Yankees and Guardians. I'm sure all of you know the result by now, but Yankees come out on top 4-1 in this series. If you did pick to watch either one of these series, I hope you picked this one because I thought it was a lot better than the Dodgers and Mets one. But some very, very competitive games here. I think almost every game was within a couple runs. Lots of high stakes moments, lots of big at bats, and just huge plays by both teams. I know the Yankees won 4-5, but these games were a lot closer than you would probably think by just looking at the series score. Giancarlo Stanton obviously had a big series. I want to say there's multiple Yankees players over 1,000 OPS during the playoffs and this series. I think Soto was. I think Gleyber Torres was. Giancarlo Stanton was. He has 5 home
Mhm.
runs in the postseason now. Um, the other interesting tidbit with the Yankees is their bullpen actually struggled a bit in this series. They were lights out against the Royals, but they did struggle just a bit this series. But their offense really picked it up. The offense did struggle in the division series, but they were able to pick up a lot of the slack, score a lot of runs. And yeah, lots of cool moments. Clase again struggled in this series. Back to back home runs to Judge and Stan in game three, I think that was, because that was the game the Guardians also walked off with the John Kinsey Noel home run in the ninth, and then the David Fry home run in the 10th. So that was a really, really fun game. Yeah, lots of great moments. Yankees, I think, were the better team, and they did show that for sure. Pretty impressive too. I think there was a pretty big difference between the bullpens here, and the Yankees still won. Guardians kind of ran out of that. I don't want to say magic; they were a good team this year, but I, their biggest hitters they didn't come up when they needed them. Like I don't want to say J Ram was awful, but he was not great this whole postseason, to be honest. Josh Naylor was another guy that you kind of noticed was not doing great. And David Fry had a great postseason, had a lot of big at bats against the Tigers and the Yankees. Um, yeah, Stephen Kwan was awesome. He had a really good series. It was a fun one to watch. Lots of great games. Both two really good teams. But yeah, the Yankees are back in the World Series. So I'll throw it over to you if you have anything to add on that.
Yeah, well, I know we were talking about this before, but I totally agree with the fact that the Yankees Guardians series was way better. So the Yankees won 4-1, and the Mets lost 4-2. But even though the Mets forced it to 6 games, that series I saw the stat and it said, and I checked it, and so I'm pretty sure this is correct. But as you guys know, all the games were blowouts, like 9-0 Dodgers. One of the games was 8-0 Dodgers, 10-2 Dodgers, and then when the Mets won, they kind of blew the Dodgers out. I guess 7-3. The only lead change I believe was in the last game, like in the first inning. The only
Yeah.
lead change of the entire series. So as soon as a team like scored and started piling runs on, the other team just kind of like sat back and just took the L from then on. So it's not super exciting. I mean, the series was still good in terms of offense. There's a lot of offense in the NLCS, but the ALCS was like you said that the games were close. The Guardians they lost 4-1, but they were battling like the entire way. If you guys saw Game Three with the David Fry walk off, Game Three was amazing, and that was the only game the Guardians won. But even like the other games were like very good. And I guess my main takeaway, and you mentioned the bullpens, but going in, we saw this huge gap between the Guardians bullpen and the Yankees bullpen because the Guardians bullpen has been so dominant like the entire year, and then it can just tell you like what team's hot, what team's not. The Yankees bullpen has started to really heat up recently. Um, And looking at like the Guardians bullpen, they were starting to really struggle. As you said with Class A was abysmal. He pitched 2.1 innings and gave up 4 runs. And then like other guys that have been so good all year, like Cade Smith, he blew up too. Like Joey Cantillo, Hunter Gaddis, like all these guys that they depended on the entire year and throughout the postseason thus far against like the Tigers, they were dominating too. So just to see that flip, that I think that was the biggest takeaway I took, and that was like the biggest game changer because a lot of these games were decided late in the game, like the seventh, eighth, ninth inning, and then even like in the extra innings. That's when like you really started to see these teams or the Yankees pull ahead from the Guardians. So it just really a great series. I know it didn't go far, but overall very good.
Yeah, to touch on your bullpen point, I don't know if it was more about the bullpen of the Guardians not having like their stuff going and like not having their good pitches and whatnot, but I think it was
Mhm.
more Vogt kept taking out his starters relatively early. Like I remember I texted you, I think it was Boyd. They took him out after like a couple innings, and then Bybee also got taken out in game one after like not even 2 innings.
Yeah.
And so I was I think the more you do that, the more you're going to see the bullpen guys, and the more you're going to see them, the more you're going to know what to expect. And these are good hitters on the Yankees. Like you give them a couple of bats against your best arms, I think they're going to hit them.
Mhm.
And I think we saw that towards the end where the Yankees started to come alive towards the end of these games, like you said, and like scoring a lot in the later innings. And that was just because they started to see these guys like every day. And maybe every day is an over exaggeration, but the more you see a guy, the more you're going to kind of know how to prepare for that and know what's
Absolutely.
coming. And I think you saw evidence of that. Of Vogt, he did a great job. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just saying like the weak starting rotation, you could say, was not doing well for their amazing bullpen because they kept seeing these guys, every other day, right? And so I think the Yankees kind of acclimated to that, and they couldn't just rely on that amazing bullpen to keep them in these games like they did a lot in the regular season.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to hone in on, I think this was uh, did Bybee start game 4 or 5? Was it? I think it was 5. He
I
started.
think
It
he
would have been
started the
game.
last game that they played. Yeah.
Um, I remember this was his last inning, and there's 2 outs, and Stan was up at bat, and it was 0-2, and then Stan worked it to a 3-2 count, and all the announcers were both saying like, you cannot miss this in the zone, like throw to the next guy. You'd rather, I think they said, let him get himself out or something like
Mhm.
that. Like you don't want to, you either walk him or you don't let it give him something to
Yeah.
hit,
They
and I
can
think
chase.
that was yeah, that was Bybee's one like mistake pitch in this game. Not one mistake pitch, but he left it over the middle, and Stanton I think hit it 446 to left. So
Yeah.
I just thought that was like it was crazy to hear the announcers talk about it and then see it happen. I always think that's cool when that happens. Like they kind of like, hey, you can't do that, and then
Mhm.
they predict what would happen if you did, and that's exactly what happened. And it was so I don't want to say funny, but as soon as it was off the bat, Bybee just put his head down. He knew it was gone, and he knew he missed the pitch. That was a big moment in that game. That was massive. And same with the Rocchio era in the was that the 10th? Yeah, 10th inning.
It was the last. Yeah.
Um, that was also huge because if you get 2 outs, Glaber comes up to bat. That's the final out. Glaber still got out, but then Soto had the last at bat, and we all know what happened there. We also did talk about that a bit and just the approach Soto had. And
Oh yeah.
if you have not seen that at bat, I'd recommend you go watch it. For if you're a very big baseball fan, that is a fun at bat to watch. Soto is just you could tell he's got all the confidence in the world. He's staring Gaddis down. He knows what's coming somewhat, and just kind of
Mhm.
he's just feeling it up there. And it's really fun to see a guy like that do it. And he's got all of his shuffles and all of his movement around the box and stuff, which
Yeah.
is funny. Just fun to watch a guy like him take an at bat and see what he can do with it, and then got a hold of one, and now we're talking about Yankees in the World Series. So that was another kind of big thing. That just so many cool moments in this series. Lots of things we'll remember for years to come.
Yeah. I think the Guardians fans and like the coaching staff and the players, they got to be ecstatic with how the season went. With their like preseason like win total set at like 40 or not 40, set at like 74 wins. They ended up winning the division, winning in the ALDS, moving on, battling in the ALCS. So if you're a Guardians fan, you got to be extremely happy with how this went. And they're extremely young, and this bullpen is not going anywhere. So I mean, while the Yankees are moving on and the Guardians, you're not happy with the outcome, but you still have to be consider the season a huge success, especially with Vogt being the first season manager. So
Yeah. If you can build on what you had this year, the Guardians will be set up for another really good run next year and probably another
Mhm.
late push. And now with like even watching David Fry, he was a little more consistent than John Kinsey Noel, but John Kinsey Noel's home run was awesome. Like that's so cool. So yeah, lots of positives to take away from the Guardians for sure. And I think they'll probably be around the same kind of quality next year, I would hope, and maybe they can go out and get another big arm in the rotation and even build on that bullpen even more, which would be kind of scary. So I know we kind of touched on, or you touched on the Mets Dodgers a bit, but we can go into that a little more. Unfortunately, the Mets insanity run comes to an end here to the Dodgers. And like you said, not as much of a enjoying series for a baseball fan where a lot of the
yeah.
games were blowouts and the only lead change was in the game six, which was in like the first inning, and then the Dodgers ran
Mhm.
away with it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you saw two great teams go at it, two best teams left in the NL, obviously. The Dodgers looked really good here. And I'm sure, I think a takeaway for me from this one is I'm sure you've seen this, but Dave Roberts has been getting a lot of attention for how impressive he was in managing this team. Um, Really only three like starting arms in this with Bueller, Yamamoto, and Flaherty.
Yeah.
Those are kind of like the three, and then otherwise it's bullpen games and bullpen arms. And so being able to handle that task, and especially when Bueller's coming off injury, Yamamoto's coming off injury, and like working with that, and also trying to manage, like I said, the bullpen and when to throw guys in and how many innings they should go. He did a very, very good job with that. And I think the offense helped him out a lot too by just adding on a lot of runs. So you didn't have to, you kind of took that pressure off. But yeah, I did say like the Dodgers, they're going to go as far as like some of those bottom of the other guys are going to take them. And maybe to some extent that's not always true. But you saw Tommy Edman have an amazing NLCS. He won the NLCS MVP. Kike Hernandez, amazing postseason so far. He's been
Mhm.
hitting home runs like crazy. So it's all these kind of other guys that, yes, you still have your Freemans, your Betts, your Otanis, but
Yeah.
these other guys are also kind of being a great supporting cast and just being very relentless at the plate. And I think that helped them out a lot. And it'll make it super interesting for this World Series when um, there's just a lot of star power. So, yeah.
Yeah, really this was really just a battle of the offenses, I felt like, and like which pitching side is not going to like blow these games. Cuz I'm just looking at the OPSs for each team. So the Dodgers OPS across the series was 854, which is nuts. Throughout 6 games, and then the Mets was 749. So still like a decent series for them offensively. Like they had guys like Mark Vientos, who seems to always come up clutch. He had 3 home runs and 7 RBIs. And this kind of ties into what you were saying about Dave Roberts. So he's got a lot of negative um, criticism over the past years because they always seem to have the best team and then they always seem to fall up short. Besides the COVID year, which people say it counted, doesn't count, whatever. I'm not going to go into that, but Dave Roberts, the one mistake that I saw, which was kind of a big mistake, was when I believe it was man at second and third, and he intentionally walked Francisco Alvarez, and this is when or Francisco Lindor, and then
Mm-hmm.
Vientos stepped up and hit the grand slam. I saw that live, and that was awesome. But really, other than that, and I mean, it's easy to, I mean, it's easy to look back now and say, oh yeah, Dave Roberts shouldn't have walked Lindor. But I mean, with the run Lindor was on, it's kind of hard not to walk him there. But just like guys like Vientos, like I said, those guys stepped up. Winker stepped up. He had a great series, and then like you said, Alvarez and Lindor they played great too. So They deserve a lot of credit. Their pitching side of things for the Mets was very, very rough. That's kind of what I was worried about going into the series. They had a 7.1 ERA throughout the 6 games, and
Mm.
just the guys that they have relied on throughout the year, like Quintana, Senga, Tyler McGill, they all struggled a lot in their appearances. And Sean Manaea even he did amazing throughout the first couple of games of the postseason, but he kind of fell apart towards the end, and it kind of ties back to what you were saying about when these batters are seeing these pitchers like continuously, like 2 times in a series, and they're facing them for what, like 10 or 12 innings. It's hard to keep that dominance that Sean was having on them. So I feel like that's kind of where that blow up came in. But overall, just hitting. If you wanted to see hitting, this was a series to go to. But like we said, it wasn't all that close. So in that sense, it wasn't the best. But it made way for one of the best matchups between the Dodgers and Yankees. So
Uh, do you think Pete Alonso played his last game as a Met?
hmm.
I know that's kind of a tricky question, but I was just curious if you had any thoughts
Yeah,
about it.
I really don't think so. Um, I feel like, and I don't know how much this actually matters, but and you can kind of chime in on this, but with Pete Alonso's electric moment against Devin Williams in the against Milwaukee in the wild card, I feel like something is not small, but like something as simple as that moment is something to like bring him back. Whereas if the Mets got like blown out in like both games against Milwaukee, and then they like kind of faded away, and Pete Alonso didn't do good. I feel like what happens like most recent has like a big effect on like the contract. Like the fans will turn against you, but all the fans are on Pete's side. He loves New York. I really don't think he's going anywhere. And Steve Cohen has a ton of money, and out of anybody to pay somebody, it's probably him. So, what do you think?
Yeah, it's if I think it would also help if we knew a little bit more about like contracts and everything. And like you said, New York Mets are not really a team that's lacking the money to do this, but um, I think consideration of how much he wants versus how much you think he's worth. Like, I'm not gonna say he had a bad year. He still hit like 30 plus home runs, but there were times he struggled a bit.
Yeah,
Um, and you know, you know what you're getting. You're not most of the time you're not going to get average, but you're going to get power. I mean, that's for sure. Um, and like you said, the connection is there. He loves the fans. He loves New York. New York loves him. It's like it seems like the easy thing to do. Like I don't know why you wouldn't. I guess. Uh, and what else are you going to have at first base next year if you don't have Pete? And you could also make a consideration of like, and again, this is like goes into like contracts and how much money you want to shell out. But if New York decides to be a contender in the Juan Soto sweepstakes and you want to shell out all that money to Soto, do you have enough money left to pay Pete? Because Pete would be pretty expensive at the same time.
yeah,
So there's things like that to consider also with who's out there in free agency. And Soto is obviously like a golden ticket type free agent. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I have a feeling he'll stay. And I remember there were talks about him like because they were having trouble getting something figured out in by the trade deadline because at that point the Mets didn't know if they were going to be buyers or sellers, and so you knew Pete was a free agent. So are you going to dump him off and get what you can because you can't come to a deal or just wait it out? And it seems like it worked out pretty well that they waited out for that. It'll be interesting. The fact that they didn't trade him makes me think he'll stay. I
yeah,
think he will. And they could probably still get him and get Soto in the same offseason. Like, I don't think that'd be an issue, but it'll be interesting. He's a Met to me, and I hope he stays that way. But
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's a good question to think about. And one of the many players we'll find out where he ends up as we kind of get towards the end of the season. But
Mm-hmm.
all right, so now that we've kind of gone back a bit, we're gonna look forward now and look at the World Series matchup and the lineups we're gonna have going into this. So I'll be covering the Yankees. Parker's gonna take the Dodgers, and we're just gonna kind of go through what these teams are bringing and kind of where we think they might have the advantage and where we might lean in terms of that. So We're gonna start with the bullpens. I'll get going on the Yankees. So, just I'll list off some of the names, or all the names that I've got here, and then I'll let you say the Dodgers end, and then we'll kind of just talk about it and
Hmm.
go from there. So, coming out of the Yankees bullpen, we got Jake Cousins, Tim Hill, former White Sox legend Tim Hill, Clay Holmes, Tommy, I think it's Canale, Mark Leiter Jr., Tim Maeza, Clark Schmidt's a starter, and then Luke Weaver. And it's crazy. It's so
Yeah.
good. Um, yeah, the Yankees, they do have some guys. They do have some guys. Luke Weaver's obviously been a notable standout for them. He's been excellent in the postseason so far. He's got a 2.61 ERA, and that was after his blow up in Game 3, I think it was.
Yeah.
Uh, but he has served that closer role very well. Other than that, and yeah, some of the I did mention Tim Hill. He was I know I'm White Sox stuff, but he was on the White Sox earlier this year, and he got DFA'd. And I remember he got picked up by the Yankees, and I was like, "Oh, dude, he's got a wicked release, and he's pretty much like a submarine." And I was like, "Dude, the Yankees are gonna turn him into a monster." And so yeah, now he's got a 1.59 ERA and 5 innings pitched so far this postseason, and that's turned out really well for him. I'm glad they found something to work right for him. And yeah, the rest of the bullpen, it's not going to blow your socks off, but it's hopefully going to get the job done for that offense to kind of make way. Um, it kind of imagine like a crutch almost, and the offense is like weighing on it, and then if that crutch breaks, that's kind of like I feel like going to topple the whole team. I feel like the bullpen will hold up or the offense will hold up the bullpen, but if the bullpen is like too much, it'll snap and fall. Uh, but yeah, Dodgers got some guys over there. Like I don't even think Trent has let up a run yet in the postseason.
No, it's. I also would probably have to lean toward the Dodgers, but like you were saying with the Yankees, I think the biggest thing in their bullpen is the emergence of Luke Weaver as like their main start or their main closer over Clay Holmes. Like all throughout the year, they're blowing all these late games with Clay Holmes, trying to find this guy to shut down these games. And now, I guess other than that one blow up he had, his numbers have still been very good. Um, and throughout the entire postseason, the Yankees have a 3.27 ERA across 62 innings in their bullpen. So I mean, this really isn't. It's not as big of a gap as we're kind of making it seem like.
I
But
make it seem like
yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, looking at these bullpen games that the Dodgers have been doing and like what they did to the Padres, they embarrassed the Padres with that bullpen game, and like I don't know. I really don't see it slowing down. Like you mentioned, I think Trinan is insane. If you watch any of his pitches, it looks like he's out there throwing like a wiffle ball. It doesn't even look like it's real. Evan Phillips is awesome. Just all these guys, Michael Kopech getting him from the White Sox, you can throw him in there in a high leverage situation, and nobody wants to face 100 miles an hour up in the zone. So I would also have to lean towards the Dodgers in this sense, but I don't see a reason why the Yankees won't keep it rolling on the bullpen side.
see, I don't think I agree with you on that because they got touched up against the Guardians. I know they had a good division series, but they were not great in the championship series.
Yeah,
They had like 18 scoreless in the division series, so I think that's why the ERA is like pretty okay. Um, they were not fantastic in the championship series. They were good enough, but um, I still think the gap. I would say the gap is as big as I'm making it seem, but there is a window for them to maybe like be all right. But I think there's also the big difference between the Royals and the Dodgers hitters. You can make that argument too. It's like two
yeah,
completely different teams. I don't know. I get nervous about it. I don't think it's going to be fun for them. And then before we move on to the rotation, I think you could definitely say the Kopech Edmund trade has been the trade of the deadline at this
yeah,
point.
for sure.
That has turned out. I don't think it could have been any better for the Dodgers, especially after this championship series Edmund have, and what Kopech's been doing, like that's crazy that they pulled that off.
After it happened, like looking at it, it's like, oh, the Dodgers, they got Kopech and they got Tommy Edman. Like, what are they doing? Are they actually trying to win? And then
Hmm.
looking at it now, it's so much different. And you can kind of say the same about the Yankees. Like, looking at the Yankees, I know Jazz has been bad in the postseason, but looking at them, like all they got was Jazz. And then I saw a thing. Did they acquire Tim Hill at the deadline? Do you know? Did you say that?
I think no, I'm pretty sure Tim Hill got DFA'd by the White Sox, and the Yankees just claimed him. I don't think it
Okay.
was a trade or anything.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, looking at that, it's like, okay, what are they trying to win? Is this a joke? And then Hill's like one of the best relievers for them. So both these teams didn't seem to make any like massive moves, I guess, other than Flaherty for the Dodgers, but both they're both like really starting to like pay off now. And I can see a world where Jazz picks it up, especially as the lights get even brighter now. So um yeah.
Okay, so we'll bounce over to the starting rotations, which I don't know if we've called a rotation at this point because I think both teams are running three guys. So we'll definitely probably see a bullpen game from both sides. I don't know if it'll be in the same game or not, but so the Yankees are running Rodon, or it's probably going to be Cole and then Rodon, and then it's Clark Schmidt. Yeah, here he is. So Rodon, he's got a 4.4. Cole has a 3.3, and then Schmidt has a 3.86. Now, I mean, these are over like 15, 10 innings, so it's a very small sample size. But I think overall, it's good enough. Like it's you hope it's going to get the job done.
Hmm.
Um, if you kind of do a mirror comparison, I'll let you get to those guys also, but when you say, okay, who has the better rotation, I could see an argument for both, but both have their flaws and drawbacks.
Yeah.
But interesting how it ended up that way, where you don't, not many teams in this postseason had like a solid 4 or 5, and that's usually how it goes, I guess. But yeah, it's going to be these three guys as the starters, and then a couple of bullpens in between. But yeah, I'll give it to you for the Dodgers ones.
Yes, the Dodgers, they're running out Flaherty, Yamamoto, and then Walker Bueller as their main three, and then like Landon Knack might get a start for like a bullpen game or something. But looking at like Flaherty, he threw 10 innings, so he threw the most innings in the NLCS, and it was so weird to me, like looking at his stat line because he pitched. I believe did he pitch game one? Do you know? It was October
Uh,
3rd. It was either game one or game two.
you said Flaherty.
Yeah.
Flaherty, ooh, no, he got torched. It was, I think it was game two. It was game two because the Mets won.
Well, his first game against the Mets on October 13th, the second game was the one he got torched, but the first game he threw
Oh, okay.
seven innings, 2 hits, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts,
Oh yeah.
completely dominated them. And it was like, okay, Jack Flaherty's back. This is the guy he's been throughout the whole year. Like he's ready to go. And then October 18th, the game that they lost against the Mets, one of the games they lost, 3 innings, 8 hits, 8 earned runs, 4 walks. So command was completely gone. So it's so hard for me to like gauge where he's at. Like, are we going to see the 3 innings, 8 earned runs, or are we going to see the 7 innings of shutdown from him? So I'm so like torn on him. Walker Bueller, I'm also like, I know his last start, people were hyping him up because he was doing pretty good. He threw 4 scoreless innings, but he did get in some jams. He had 2 walks and 3 hits. But his starts against the Padres, the first one was decent, but the other one was 6 innings or 5 innings, 6 earned runs. So he was horrible throughout the regular season, and he had an injury, so I'm gonna cut him some slack. But I don't see him as very reliable either. And then Yamamoto, he only started one game in this series, but 4.1 innings, um, 2 earned runs. I mean, he looked okay. It was he's another guy that had injuries and stuff. So like looking at all these guys, they don't have like a great like one like you can talk. I'll let you talk about him, but Garrett Cole, like comparing Cole to Flaherty, because I assume people would say Flaherty's a Dodgers one because he's starting game one, but I don't know. I see that's like the biggest gap to me, and then just the inconsistencies with the other two really scare me going into this series. So yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, Garrett has been uh, pretty good, I think, this postseason, and
Yeah,
he's been. It's fun to watch him come back out and do his thing. Still, probably not fully back to Garrett Cole, but I think 75, 80% Garrett Cole is pretty good still, obviously.
oh yeah,
Um, and Rodon, he's had his fair share of good and not so good starts this postseason, so that's also kind of like a 50-50 to me. Um, and then Clark Schmidt, I couldn't tell you much about. He hasn't pitched a lot of innings this postseason yet,
yeah.
and that's could also maybe be a coin flip. I think he's good, but um, a lot of these starts from both teams could go either way. It seems like, um, and kind of like what you were saying with all these guys, where it's like, okay, on this one hand, like blah blah blah, and this other hand, like it's like, which pitcher are you gonna see in each game? And I think it'll be different for everybody because I don't think any of these guys have had stellar postseasons like this year specifically. Of like,
Yeah.
dude, he's let up like one run this whole time, and he's not like he's been so good. Like they've all kind of had their up and down points, so it'll be interesting to see. And I'm maybe it'll just be like all the adrenaline, and we're gonna see a lot of great starts from all these guys, which would be really fun to watch. It'll be tough with all the offensive firepower on both sides, but I I don't even know who I would say I'd favor more. I'd probably say the Dodgers,
Well, I'll
but
ask you this. So looking at the two and the three for each team, let's say
wait,
Yamamoto and Bueller, the
okay,
two and
okay.
three. Would you say Yamamoto and Bueller are equivalent or worse or better than the 2-3 of Schmidt and Rodon?
I
Or is
would
it a toss
definitely
up?
say
I think it's a toss up.
I think knowing what Bueller's done in previous years, I know he's coming off injury. Knowing what Bueller's done, like I would just pull that up in 2019, he had a .7 ERA in the playoffs through. I was only 12 innings. But in 2020, and I go that was COVID season. But in 25 innings, he had a 1.8. He was one of the better postseason pitchers, and he's kind of been derailed for a long time, just with a lot of stuff. But um, Yamamoto, obviously, he didn't sign that huge contract for nothing. He's a stud. He's been struggling a bit, and he's still trying to figure out that whole thing. But I think when you list it out like that, I would say Dodgers. I think.
Yeah. It's so hard for me to get behind Walker Bueller though with missing not a great 22. I mean, he didn't pitch that much, but 20 or 23 he didn't even pitch at all. This year he was abysmal. 45 earned runs in 16 games. So, dude, it's so I know it's easy to go and look at what Bueller did in the past, and he used to be like a dog, and he was like a Cy Young front runner. But thinking that just because they're in the World Series that he's going to turn it on, it's so hard for me to get behind that.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say like when he had his start in the championship series, you could just tell he feeds for like he lives for this kind of stuff. I mean, I know he still let
Yeah,
up a couple of runs, but he had some huge pitches and some huge moments, and you could tell he loves this. Like he loves being back here and doing all
yeah,
this again because it's been so long for him. And I don't think that pedigree goes away. Like I think there's a reason he pitched really well, and it is hard to say like just because like 3 or 4 years ago he was doing that means he'll do it now. But I think that has a certain thing where like he shows emotion, he gets into it, he feeds off that energy. Um, okay, so I'll throw it back at you then. Would you rather have Cole or Flaherty for the one?
Garrett Cole, 100%. Yeah, that's where I
Yeah.
think the difference is for
That's
sure.
fair. If you say toss up 2 and 3, then the ace, I would say Cole too.
Yeah,
Um,
Garrett Cole's been looking at his all of his postseason stats, like even in years past, he's been great. And having him go game one and then game whatever 5 or 6, whatever other games they had. I mean, and if it goes to 7 games, he might be able to get 3 starts with how much time they get in between these games. So I think that's the difference maker on for the starting rotation side of things. But yeah, I can see both ways with the 2 and the 3 for each team. But
I'm just looking at it. I did not realize he was such a dog in 2019 with Houston. In the postseason, it was 36 innings and a 1.72 ERA with 47 strikeouts. That's
yeah,
insane. Yeah, so lots of great guys here. Getting into that. So okay, I guess officially then, what I'd say Dodgers, and then what you said Yankees.
yes,
Okay, that's fair. That is probably the closest. Oh well, this could be close to. I don't know what I'm gonna say for this.
for the
Uh,
offense,
yeah, for
it is
offense,
so close. This is
these gonna be a great series if this is gonna tell you
oh
anything.
yeah.
Okay, so uh, coming into the Yankees hitters, let's see if I can go. Let's see if I can remember their lineup. So leadoff is Gleyber Torres. Soto hits second, Judge is three, and then Stanton is fourth, Jazz five. And then I think it's usually Verdugo, Volpe, and then like Wells, and then who would be the last guy? Rizzo. I forgot about Rizzo. Rizzo, Birdie. It'll probably be Rizzo. I think he had a great championship series. I don't know why he wouldn't play again. Um, but yeah, so that's probably the main guys you would see for the starters every day. Cabrera comes in if Rizzo needs to run. He got pinch run a few times and he'll hit. Birdie, like I said, Dominguez is on the bench. Trevino at catcher and Fred bats at sit. They do have Duke Ellis as well, who Duke Ellis was another guy that was on the White Sox earlier this year, and I'm guessing he got DFA too because he's just a speed threat. He'll come into steal probably if anything if they need a runner in like the ninth or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was talking to you about this though. Very, very few of these hitters are not hitting great. Like Judge is still not doing amazing. Jazz is also struggling, but Stanton, Soto, Glaber, Rizzo, Volpe, they're all having excellent postseasons right now. And even though Judge is struggling again in the postseason, which sucks, but he has hit 2 home runs, which is helpful. It's not everything, but it is something, I guess. You'd like to see him get on base a little bit more and get the average up also. Um, but still, they have really the bats have turned on since the division series where they kind of relied on their pitching a lot in that one. So they're coming in hot, and it's tough to run into a Soto that's hitting like this. And I want to say Judge will get going, but you don't know. You just really don't. So you hope so, but I don't know. Looking at that, it's kind of like, okay, maybe the Dodgers might be a little more, but I'll let you kind of run through them now.
Yeah, just going through the Dodgers. So this is the projected Game One of the World Series lineup. So Otani batting first for DH, and then Betts number two, Freeman, Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, Gavin Lux, Will Smith, Tommy Edman, and then Kike Hernandez. I think this is a more well balanced lineup. Um, but if you're not look if to not look at the balance side of things, if you look at just like who's hot, I think Soto and Stanton are the two hottest, even over Edman in the entire postseason. So on the Yankee side, I think it depends more on. So I really, it's going to be hard for Stanton and Soto to keep up with this crazy pace. Although I do think they're both going to be really good in the World Series. I don't think like Stanton's not going to hit 4 home runs. There's no way, right? And
Right?
Soto could very easily hit 3 home runs again. But I think that it all comes down to with whatever like their regression in the World Series, which I would assume there has to be some. Judge has to pick that up, and Jazz can pick up a little bit of it, but it really just relies on Judge. Judge, I think he's batting 167 either in the ALCS or just the entire postseason. But like you said, those home runs have boosted his OPS to like the 700s, but he's not getting on base at all. And he's just home run or bust right now. And I think he'll be the difference in making up for whatever lost offense they have with like Rizzo's been kind of on a tier two, but Kind of looking at the Dodgers side of things, they've been, like I was saying, with their OPS of 854 in the NLCS, their offense has been clicking massively. So like Max Muncy has been amazing. He had 2 home runs. Shohei Ohtani had 2 home runs. We know what he's going to bring. He batted a 1.185 OPS in the NLCS. Mookie Betts has really picked it up ever since the haters said that he couldn't really hit in the postseason. Um, Tommy Edman, like we've talked about before, but he was awesome. Did he get the NLCS MVP, right?
Yeah, he won it.
Yeah, Tommy Edman. What the?
Not on my postseason bingo card at all. Tommy
Yeah,
Edman.
Chris Taylor. I know he was bad throughout the year, but in the past in the postseason, he's been like their guy to go to. He was great in the NLCS, and then Kike Hernandez, same thing. He was terrible throughout the year, and I remember one of the broadcasters said, "Okay, well, the Dodgers got him back because not because of what he does in the postseason, but or not because of what he does in the regular season, but what he does in the postseason." And in my head, it's like that seems like a weird reason to go and get somebody because part of me sees it as like kind of a coincidence if somebody does good in the postseason, like if it's that or if it's just they feed off the energy. So I'm like, that seems like why are we doing that? Why are we getting Kike Hernandez just for the postseason? Now I know why. He
Dude,
he seems
I
to
was
turn
gonna
it up a notch every postseason. So
I forgot. I think I was listening to a podcast, and they were looking at the numbers. The stretch he goes on in the postseason is like 30, 40 points OPS wise above anything else he's ever done. It's crazy.
yeah,
Like he just that's yeah, that's all it
I
is.
don't get it. I mean, I don't know what it is. Do you
Some
think
guys
it's luck or do you think it's just
know.
that's just how he is? He just
I the only way I can describe it is it like playing sports growing up. I'm sure you can relate to this. Like those big games, right? If you're ever in a championship or like a playoff elimination game, like
Mhm.
there's just something there, I guess. And I'm talking about this from like the youth, like sports level of like, okay, you get
right.
like a trophy
A
or something.
small
This is
level,
like
yeah.
this is World Series. Everybody's watching you. You're playing in front of 40,000 people, millions at home. Like having that little feeling if you play sports growing up, it's like, okay, what are these guys feeling when this is like this is huge. Like this is like
Mhm.
history like in the making. And so you do feel that kind of extra jolt and like energy, the adrenaline is a real thing. And so I think some guys just take that and run with it, and Kike is one of those guys. But it is pretty funny because like he had, I think 2018 was his best year or something, and even that doesn't compare to what he's doing in the postseason, which I think is pretty funny. But yeah, he's another guy that's just kind of stepped up. And Muncy, oh my gosh, Muncy is he's
Yeah,
one of the best hitters right now.
mhm.
It's like I love like the big guys that can see the ball really well. Like they walk or they hit home runs and that's it.
Mhm.
Like your Shorbers and your Muncies. Like
Yeah.
when I like guys a lot like that, where they're discipline and just their vision is really good, but they can still hit the ball really far away too. I love watching those guys, and Muncy has been excellent for the Dodgers this postseason, so that's been fun to see. Um, so I was looking just again back at the Yankees. So Stanton has throughout the whole postseason, his OPS is a 1.179 and Soto's a 1.106. The next guy is Glaber with an 832, and then Volpe has an 804. And Judge is at 704, and then it kind of keeps falling from there. So I definitely think you're right saying with the top heavy, because it's like Stanton and Soto are in like a league of their own, and then
Yeah.
Glaber and Volpe are like they're good. They're just but they're like nowhere near them, and then there's like a pretty big drop off after that. And Rizzo, I think his OPS is like a full .1, but he only played in the championship series, so that could also be a toss up there. Um, yeah, I think. Oh my gosh, if Judge plays anything close to what he did in the regular season, would I even give it to them there? I don't know. The Dodgers are hitting so well right now, and it's like a team effort, not just two guys. Um,
I'll give mine first.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can
you go, you go.
marinate a little bit. I I think I'd have to go with the Dodgers. I mean, their offense has been like going crazy. And like we were saying with Judge, if he picks it up, they're like a whole nother offense. Looking at the Dodgers, a lot of their like good guys have been playing amazing, but like there's guys that are struggling mightily. Like Teoscar Hernandez, he was 2 for 22 in the NLCS for an 091 average, and then Freddie Freeman was 3 for 18, and he's been banged up. I don't know if that has played a role in that, but Will Smith he was also bad. He was 182. So those three guys, they're not going to be that bad. Will Smith does scare me because he was so bad in the second half compared to his first half. But Hernandez and Freddie Freeman, they're 100% going to kick it up, especially Freddie. He seems to feed off the intensity too because I know he played very good in his 2021 championship with the Braves, but I definitely have to go with the Dodgers. They have just way more depth, and even the top of the lineup, like or the top of their offensive like star power, is equivalent or even greater than the Yankees. Because I'd say at their peak. I know Judge isn't at his peak, but would you agree that Otani and Judge are like offensively probably the same if they're both
I
at their
I would cancel them out. Yes.
so
Like
so we cancel them out. And then you look at the next guy, let's say Betts and Soto. I would lean Soto, but
yeah,
as you go down, it starts to get pretty thin on the Yankees side, and
yeah.
the Dodgers just keep churning out the firepower. So I would have to go with the Dodgers.
Yeah, and it's all hypothetical. But if you keep going down, you run into Jazz, who maybe he starts hitting good. We've seen Austin Wells what he can do, but he's really really struggling in the postseason. Like he's not really hitting at all. He had the one home run, but he's batting below 100 right now. Otherwise,
Yeah.
the Dodgers just looked so good against the Mets. And I know the Mets pitching wasn't great in that series, but they were facing the Mets pitching that was good in the other series that they played. And so they got to them, and they got to them really well. So I'd probably say the Dodgers too. And it is hard to go against Otani and Betts and Freeman and all those other guys, but it's also hard to go against Soto and Stan. And Stan's on this historic run right now
Yeah.
too. And it's like it's so close. It's crazy. Okay, so yeah, so what? I guess I don't know if you need time to think about this, but we'll give our official prediction. So team and how many games it takes. Do you know yet, or do you?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
probably
'Cause I picked yeah, I had the Dodgers in all three different categories. Or no, I had the Yankees in the rotation, but um ultimately I think the rotation is I mean, we were arguing about it, and you chose the Dodgers. I chose the Yankees, but I don't think the Yankees rotation, although I picked them for the rotation side of things, I don't think that's enough to overtake the how great the Dodgers bullpen has been and how great their offense has been. So I would say Dodgers in 6 games.
I think so. Yeah, I'm gonna say Dodgers and wait, dude, I have no idea. It's either in 6 or 7. I think. I'll say 6 because like we talked about it the whole time, but every single one of these categories, maybe outside of like the bullpen, is like razor thin, and
Mhm.
you'll see that in this series. It's going to be very tightly contested, I hope, obviously, and there's just insane amounts of talent on both of these teams, so it'll be close. I don't think it'll be a sweep either way,
Yeah.
or even like 5 games. But yeah, it's gonna be some pretty incredible baseball, and I just thinking about it, like you could say we're watching like some of the best players of all time, kind
Oh
of,
yeah.
because you've got Otani, obviously, and Judge. Their resumes speak for themselves, but I think Betts could be in that conversation. Freeman could be there. Soto could definitely be there. I mean, there's a lot of these guys that you kind of start to realize like we're watching some of the best baseball players that have ever kind of played, in my opinion. And yeah, it's just gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. If you're a baseball fan, I don't think you could have really hoped for anything different unless you kind of just hate the Yankees and Dodgers a lot. But in terms of if you're just a baseball enjoyer, this is going to be some must see baseball content. So
Just
we're really excited for
a
it.
quick thing before we wrap it up.
Okay.
I just thought of this in my head, so I'm just you were talking
Yeah.
about how like these like amazing players and like these players that are just like defining baseball for our generation. How these guys are like we're gonna actually see them on the main stage. So I'm gonna give you um, some of the big names for each team and just quickly Hall of Fame or no Hall of Fame when it's all said and done, just whatever you think, and then
Okay.
we'll tally it up and see how many. So
Okay.
real quick, looking at the Dodgers side of things, Otani,
Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame. Okay, so there's one.
Yep.
So Otani, Mookie Betts,
Hall of Fame. Easy.
Freddie Freeman.
Yes, Hall of Fame.
Okay, I'm gonna throw him in there. This next guy, it's kind of a joke, but Clayton Kershaw, he's on the Dodgers roster.
Yeah, fine, fine, okay.
Okay, well, we'll throw him on the side,
How about Trinan? Trinan?
dude. I mean, perhaps we'll just say no for the sake of
Okay.
um the argument. But let's
Okay.
now looking at the Yankee side, Soto.
Yes.
I know it's tough to tell now, but yes, 100% yes
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
eyes
a
too.
little bit.
Stanton,
Uh,
dude,
yes.
Stanton's
Yeah, his
numbers are
postseason his postseason is way too good for him not to be in the Hall of Fame, I think.
yeah. He's got 429 career home runs, so
Yeah, yeah, okay.
definitely. Um, Garrett Cole,
Yeah, yes, yes.
yeah, I would say yes too. This now it gets kind of tough. Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah, yeah, Rizzo should be in there, I think.
Let me look real quick
I
at stats.
I would also this would be way too much of a stretch at this point, but I would not be surprised if Jazz got there someday. But I won't say that now. But I'm saying
Yeah,
I think Jazz is another guy that could sneak in after, we see more of him. He's still really young, but I think
right,
Jazz not on this list, but I think you could
right.
maybe toss him in.
So now, just looking at that, including Kershaw, seven that we think, and I'm pretty positive all seven of the guys that we just said are going to get in. Seven
Mhm.
Hall of Famers on the main stage, six that are actually going to be playing without Kershaw. But that's crazy. Like I don't think we're going to see this for a long time. That
Well,
many
who was
insane,
it last year? Corey Seager and Ketel Marte were the two best or something?
exactly, and like
Like,
even
and not
Cattell's
to
probably
discredit
not Hall of Fame.
not to discredit those guys at all, but I'm just saying, comparison
Yeah,
wise,
no,
it's a whole other game.
it's insane. This is going to be such a fun series in that sense to see those guys and see these guys try to build their like resume to get in the Hall of Fame. Like this could cement like if Stanton wins it and he goes off, that cements his Hall of Fame candidacy. And like even Rizzo could help his Hall of Fame candidacy a lot if he wins World Series MVP. So this is
Stan,
it's got big states individually too. So
if Stan wins MVP, I think that could cement his case as one of the best postseason hitters of all time.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
he always just seems to hit really well during the postseason. That's even more evident this year.
Hmm.
Um, okay, well, if you don't have anything else to add, I don't want to cut you off
No,
again.
no, I'm all set. That's all I want to throw in there.
So yeah, World Series starts Friday. We hope you all enjoy it, obviously, and we'll be back next week. I don't know at what point we'll be at. Probably a few games in, just to talk about it. Give our
Yeah.
little thoughts. Probably be a bit of a short episode, but yeah, getting exciting times, obviously, and we're looking forward to watching it. So signing off for Week 8. We'll see you.
Thank you.